As a man, what are some of the most ridiculous double standards you've had to deal with? I went through a 6-month heated political battle 10 years ago at work around gender equality and responsibilities of duty, which still leaves me shaking my head. Basically, I used to run many sales teams across North America. These salespeople lived on the road, either by taking 2 to 4 flights a week, or driving 80k miles a year, if they had a rural territory driving around to different parts. They took a minimum of 15k base salary, and earned 5% of everything they sold as commission. Base salary was set by years worked as a professional seller, plus seniority at the firm, cost of living increase plus 5k bump in base every year you hit plan, or 2.5k bump for not being terrible. Top salespeople made 250k a year, learners and entry people made 35 to 50k, mid-pack was about 80 to 120k. They also got to keep all their credit card points, which could add up to 2 family vacations a year with how they were spending on travel and entertainment. One day I got an official letter of complaint by a female saleswoman who complained that her male colleague got extra leads from a trade show, and it wasn't fair. The most egregious part is that she was on the lower end of mid-pack, even though she had the job for 5 years, and she was complaining about a kid who just started his job and barely made rent money. All of a sudden, about half my sales teams who were women starting the same complaint in support of the first person, even though careful analysis showed our lead distribution process was very fair. I had almost a stoppage of work because of this complaint. After a 6-month-long investigation and interviewing every one of my 500 sellers, turns out majority of the time female sellers, all but 2. And those 2 were consistently in the top 5 sellers in the country, consistently left trade show floors earlier to catch flights they booked to get home earlier, never did tear down, and packing up equipment and shipping equipment out, a process that could take 2 to 5 hours longer. There was nothing stopping anyone from wanting to help tear down. My sellers set their own schedules and booked their own flights. All of the men said they always seemed to be the de facto tear down people, and they were happy to do it because during this time, other salespeople from the trade show would shoot the sheet and relationships would bloom, and new areas of distribution or direct customers would form because it would be the same set of people. Staying behind an extra half day to pack up, rinse/repeat over a course of a year or 2 with a trade show every 2 weeks, and those that stayed behind to do cleanup work did in fact showcase higher performance on commission point in a job that is majority commission based and not exactly hard to measure performance, and the activities that supported higher performance have more meetings, meet more new people, track and follow up thoroughly. We still had people thinking it was a gender discrimination issue. A fat woman is told beautiful at any weight, be proud of your curves, fat is beautifully etc. There are even plus sized models. I don't hear anyone saying fat men are fantastic, huge is handsome, moves rock. I'm pretty sure the fat guys out there aren't getting their doors broken down by horny women because fat is beautiful. Men shouldn't objectify women, but women use dildos, which seems like the ultimate objectification of men. If a man hits a woman, he is a piece of shit, which I agree with. If a woman hits a man, you go girl. Girl power and nearby men often help the woman. Being a full-time mom, according to Oprah, toughest job there is. Being a full-time working dad, it's your job, man up. If a girl gets pregnant, it is the man's fault. Unless he drugged her, the woman has to take some responsibility. Everyone knows what causes babies. There was a time when the number of women being injured at work went up to 7%. There was a national investigation. The reason was that there was higher unemployment at the time, so there were less men at work to be injured. 93% of all workplace deaths and injuries being men, and no one gives a rat's ass. Female co-worker slaps my butt. I mean, it's okay for me, I don't mind that much, but it's a double standard and people would throw bricks at me if I slapped playfully female coworkers. But personally, I have never been in those double standard situations, mostly because I sit most of my time either in work or in my home. Now getting slightly off topic, few years back my BFF told me that he had met through Discord one guy who got rapped by 2 girls. He was and still is gay guy. After the rap, hundreds of girls started sending him nudes and asking, even begging him to fuck them. and that's really messed up cause every guy who knew about his rap thing was jealous of him and was weirded out because they thought he was lucky that he scored 2 girls against his will, and after that he got nudes from a lot of girls. Also those female rapists didn't got any payback for their actions. I feel really bad about him, and for me rap is a rap. Other than that, once in church me between my ass got rubbed by assuming a 30-year-old woman when I was like 15. But that isn't a double standard really. Tired WSS just fucked up edit. I can't also be feeling sad or crying cause I'm being seen as a weak person. If a girl will be seen crying, everyone will run to ask what's wrong. But when I do that, everyone will laugh at me for being a weakling. Come on, dudes got feelings too. So, I have a story in the opposite direction. I had been at work all day, and I came home to my girlfriend, at the time, on Omegle, drunk, and zipping up her sweatshirt. Basically, I came home, and caught her flashing her tigs at strangers on the internet, after she had stolen, and drank all of my beer I had in the fridge, on my computer. She wasn't working, and I was paying all the bills. So I said fuck this, unplugged the computer, and told her you're done on the computer, you need to sober up. This resulted in her trying to smash the computer screen, roundhouse kicking the TV next to the computer and breaking it, and trying to pull a bookcase down on me. So I picked her up and carried her out of the house. The whole time she's smashing me in the head with a can of Campbell's tomato soup. I deposit her outside, and she promptly smashes the window on the door. So I go aside and force her away from the house so she doesn't cut herself on the glass, and she pulls out her phone and starts calling the cops. At this point, I pull out my own phone and call the cops, and I'm talking to the female dispatcher about what happened, and I hear the girlfriend off in the background telling them she fears for her life, and that I was standing next to her threatening to kill her. While I was on the phone with the other operator, the cops show up. Female officer goes to talk to her. Male officer comes to talk with me. Within a few minutes, I see the female officer force my girlfriend into the back of the car, and the male officer excuses himself from me and goes to talk to the female officer. I overhear a bit of conversation, and it's basically the female officer stating that my girlfriend is obviously drunk, that she lied to the 911 dispatcher and confirmed with the one that I had called that I wasn't anywhere near the girlfriend, while she was accusing me of threatening her, and the real zinger. The girlfriend told her that I drugged her out of the house, and that the whole time she was hitting me in the head with the can of soup, and that I just wouldn't die, despite her best efforts, and it wasn't fair. So I got referred to a domestic abuse hotline, and my ex got locked up for the weekend, as it happened on a Friday. Otherwise it would have been a 12-hour release, without a no contact clause on her release. Long story short, I bailed her out on Monday, at the cost of $900, and things were up and down for the next 3 or 4 months. At which point we went to court for her hearing, and the judge announced she's such a small girl and they've been living together all this time, so obviously she wasn't really any threat. I'm going to charge her with disturbance of the peace, with a $40 fine, and she's free to go. Of course, I had a black eye that day, because she had gotten drunk and tried to kill herself the night before, and I basically pinned her down so she couldn't. So she decided to punch me in the face a good 8 or 9 times as a reward. Thankfully, I managed to get her evicted out of my place a month later, but only because I paid a bunch of money to the state to enforce it. 440 comments. So this is gonna get lost in the crowd, and I wanna stress that this is one small issue that in the end is not meaningful, but still here it goes. When there's an issue with women, both men and women are expected to help out. This is good. This is the way it's supposed to be. Humans help other humans, but when there's an issue with men, it's expected that men try and solve the issue exclusively on their own, referring to the group. This is really easily shown on Reddit. I remember a thread about a day or 2 back about homelessness and why the majority of homeless people are men. This was a subreddit drama thread, not an original one by the way, and somehow it got transferred to domestic abuse. The amount of awful shit I saw women saying about male domestic abuse victims was awful in that thread. One in particular that stuck out to me was a woman saying, well, we made our own shelters, so you should just make your own, which like a lot of women's domestic abuse shelters are made by guys. It's not purely women. Guys care about that stuff too. Why can't you help out in the same areas we help out? I know it's petty, but it hurts knowing that if my girlfriend ever hit me, I couldn't get actual help because of what's between milligram legs. This isn't my story. This happened at school while I was skipping every class I had that day. Went off smoking weed. My youthful stupidity point anyway. There was an incident at school whereby one of the girls had health issues, had a seizure and stopped breathing. At school there has to have at least one first aider, and he was male. He had to give her CPR until the paramedics arrived. Thankfully she lived. But the first aider had a complaint by the girl's parents as they didn't think it was appropriate for an adult male to give CPR, inciting that the kiss of life is inappropriate. He saved their daughter life, and he was thanked by getting fired for it. No praise, no thanks. Nothing. Point. I'll give you another one. In my first year of college, one day my class was invaded by police. I thought they were there for me as I had a stash in my bag. It turns out they were there for the eldest student. It was a woman. It turns out her husband and her have been grooming children and abusing them together. Both caught on recordings they made. Both were equally taking part in it. Where is the double standard, you say? After being convicted, he got 10 years. She got 1 year. Even though she wasn't abused by him, and she admitted she enjoyed it. She got a lighter sentence because she was a woman. And I realize now that if you look at a lot of convictions, men are more likely to be convicted with harsher sentences and women are less likely with lighter sentences. If you look at joint venture crimes with men and women, it becomes apparent the biggest double standard people just don't question. From India. So, I'm not sure how much of it applies to Western countries. We have a system of arranged marriages wherein parents select bride/groom for their kids. Needless to say, I hate it to the core, but my parents are conservative and want to find my brother a bride. He's earning pretty well, but prefers to live as low-key as possible, since we never saw that amount of money being used for us, and we've always lived like lower middle class, even though we are upper middle. The first thing a prospective bride's parents ask is kitna kamata hai aapka beta. Now, my brother has only told my parents 70% of his salary, so they put it on his profile. One fine day, a prospective bride's parents ask my dad about my brother's salary, and when he told them, they laugh at his face and cut the call. We had the bride's profile with us, so we decided to see what was she doing. Nothing. She was earning faking $0 per year. And her dad had the audacity to laugh at a guy who was earning infinitely more than her. My brother was reduced to tears the next day for no fault of his own. TLDR. Why the fuck are men supposed to be the guys who earn and do everything it takes to make a family, while all women need to do is nothing and sit on her ass at home in a marriage? I doubt that such is that good. The whole physical labor thing. Growing up, both my mother and sister had back problems. Mom and dad separated about the time I was born. Incompatible personalities shrug and weren't able to lift/move/carry heavy things, so it all fell to me. Anything that was heavy and needed to be moved, even if it should be 2 or more people moving the thing, ended up being my responsibility. As a result of this, I threw out my back near 100 times over my childhood/teenage/early adult life. Combine this with working 40 to 60-hour weeks in food service and construction. Since senior year in high school, my back is completely faked. I've got sciatica, and it's very easy for me to slip discs and throw my back out. I managed to get an office job in early 2020 before COVID faked everything, and even there I was expected to move the heavy sheet, because you're a young healthy man. I'm 28 and due to stress, family caused trauma and the general stress of growing up/being poor and abuse, I have the body of someone who's 40. Anytime I complained about back pain or how I couldn't move, that I was either told stop being lazy, or you're too young to have those issues, or you don't know what you're talking about. At my workplace I was threatened with getting fired if I don't re-dye my hair, because my hair was pink all the while 3 of my female colleagues had pink, white, green, and blue hair. Through my life I had many hair colors. I'm a guy with a really flashy style of clothing and long hair. I have been dyeing my hair for years, mainly blonde, but from time to time I put a fancy color like green, red, blue, purple, yellow and most of the times pink, because I love that color. Oh, and I also get called gay a lot for having pink as my fav color and mixing pink into a lot of my outfits. I wasn't triggered by them saying I cannot have pink hair because maybe it is against the dress code, but I was mostly triggered by the fact that literally at the same time they told me that I cannot have pink hair because it is not okay. 3 of my female colleagues had not only fancy colors, but one of them also had pink hair. I also often get called gay because of my pink hair and even more for having long hair. Been taking care of it and growing it for 5 years. Goddamn, let me enjoy it. I also get called gay a lot by people for having pink hoodies, all while hanging out with people who also have such an excessive style and fancy hair colors, but they are females, so I guess it's acceptable. It's a minor thing, really, but I really can't be doing with hearing about people misinterpreting the gender pay gap and placing it as a double standard that all us men get together and have a big back-patting thing as we go to the top of the pay scale. Point: yes, there is a correlation between the fact men get paid more than women, but the gap is very small when men and women are doing the same job. The gap is bigger elsewhere because women typically don't go into the best paying professions as men do. It's not universal worldwide, but in my country, it's illegal and has been for several decades to pay people in the same job less because of gender. It's illegal. Point: I work in engineering. It is an absolute sausage fest. However, the women I work with who are the same age as me and haven't taken time off for children earn the same money I do. Of them, several have gone on to better paying roles than mine. They deserve that pay, they're great engineers, but I also had a coworker go off on a rant that she was overlooked for a promotion that we were both up for as she was a woman. Ignoring the fact she had taken 18 months off for maternity, then spent 18 months part-time after this to raise the bambino. Point: and I really like this person. She is good at her job, but at that time of the promotion, we were both 7 years into our careers, and I had 2 and a bit years more experience as she had taken time off to raise her kid. Had she worked the same amount I had, she might well have been the better option, but the proof on the ground was I had proven I could do the role I was given because I spent 2 years doing most of it. She spent it at home or part-time.